Assuming the position, ready to learn from the pioneers. That's very good. All right. So I assume now everyone is ready. So I am Eirik Kristiansen. I'm the moderator of this panel. I am the CEO of Pixel.bet. We're an endemic eSports betting platform. And I would let my awesome panel introduce themselves. Let's start on the farthest edge with James.
Hello, I'm James Harding, founder of The Good Studio. It doesn't really sound that impressive because it doesn't do that much at the moment. We're a game development. But prior to that, I started Twitch Europe, which hopefully some people know Twitch because it kind of centralized a lot of esports. And then I've worked for various companies like DreamHack, ESL, and Fnatic in general management and just trying to figure out how they position their companies for the future of what they want to do.
Yes, keep going.
Okay, my alias is Thoorin, and I've been in esports journalism since 2001. I have a YouTube channel. I work as an analyst on events in CSGO, and I've been sponsored by a few betting companies over the years.
My name is Luca Pagano. I'm the CEO and co-founder of QLASH eSports. QLASH eSports is an esports organization based in Italy that is expanding very quickly. I've been doing this for the last 4 or 5 years, but I'm coming from 15 years of poker. So there is some similarities, but not that many. Let's put it that way.
Well, so an amazing panel so far. I think we're just going to jump right into it. And one of the key topics that we are going to discuss is how companies can position themselves within the esports space. Esports space is swiftly growing, as we all know. And I like my cool guys to contribute a little bit to how different companies can successfully penetrate this esports market. So maybe Luca, we can start with you, that you can share some insight in regards to this.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, the fact that I'm coming from the poker industry kind of gave me the experience of joining this new and very interesting industry that the esport is. So basically, my feeling is that most of the company today, endemic, non-endemic company, are really trying hard to enter in the esport industry. Everybody talk about esport. Everybody would like to position themselves in the esports. Some of them don't understand the product, so they prefer to don't invest. Others that just try to throw in some money in there with not very good results in general. We're generalizing, but that's my feeling. And I do think it's because most likely these companies don't really understand the audience, the esport audience. And I'm going to talk a bit about the audience. I also think that these companies don't really understand very much the esport industry. And I'm not pointing the finger to anyone because, again, I'm spending kind of 14 hours a day talking, speaking about esports, and every day there is something always new to discover about esports. So it's definitely a pain point to really understand the actors behind the esport industry and how the industry is evolving. Having said that, focusing on the audience. Clearly, we are talking about a completely new generation of audience. It's not our generation, is not probably the next generation, is what today is called Generation Z. I also think that people don't really understand how big is this generation gap between this Generation Z and the millennials. Long story short, I have the feeling that the gap between my generation and my father's generation is much, much smaller compared to the gap between my generation and the millennials, and it's much bigger, the gap between the millennials and Generation Z, for many different reasons, probably because of the technology, because of social media, and so on. But obviously, we're talking about a completely new audience, and it's an audience that is used to consume a specific kind, new type of content. They consume this content using new and innovative platforms, social media, but not just social media. It could be also Twitch or also new and upcoming streaming technology based, for example, on blockchain. It's an audience that at the end of the day, they want to be part. They want to have a say. Kids today, they want to be part of something. And this something can be a comment, can be a thumbs up, can be saying or suggesting what the influencer should do. Is also maybe a comment, even a trolling, maybe a trolling comment to whoever they want to troll about, but they want to be part of it. And this makes me feel that the new generation today want to be engaged. For me, the key word is engagement. But really, we've been talking about engagement many different times, how much important is an engagement. In this specific industry, engagement is definitely the key word here.
Yeah, since you now mentioned engagement, maybe I think Thoorin can be good to follow up on that, since you are in the middle of engagement with your YouTube channel, with all your commentating. You have been in the middle of the game and the end user, basically. So could you elaborate a little bit on sort of what is the biggest difference with the new generation now, since you have for many years been a big part of the esports industry and the segment, compared to sort of traditional sports? Is it a very different way in the way the younger generation communicate, and also how they engage with the game that they like and you as a caster or profile?
I think from my perspective, it feels as though a lot of the people who are esports fans just never had any connection to traditional sports culture. This was their first hobby / sport, something that they would engage with in that way. So I would say what they've done is quite organic for the space they're in. Like, you look at all the social media you have, etc. That's why a lot of fan culture might appear toxic when it's on the internet, because the idea is, I'm sure someone was making that comment in a pub when someone was watching a football game, but the player himself can't go and listen to that, can't find out what was said. So when you go down to other topics, like gambling's a pretty obvious one, perception is going to be a massive aspect for the industry, for my money. So one thing I think you have to really be careful about is the modern generation has grown up in a world of unregulated gambling companies that have just appeared out of nowhere, but were offering odds. You have all these abstractions like the skins and skin economies within games, which are basically a form of gambling, but we're again getting around regional laws, etc. So I think perception management, just to get people on board, is a big deal, which is why you notice a lot of companies, their main marketing push is, we have the license in this country or this region to operate. And then I think the knock-on effect as well is perception with the actual game developer, because remember, unlike football, someone owns the entire world of a particular game. The game developer, he has full IP rights. He's basically the god of that game. So if that person decides they're not interested in the space that you being involved in their space, they don't think it's regulated, they don't think it's safe, then those people are going to be very, very resistant to letting you come in, and you won't have the sponsorship opportunities to get the exposure out there.
So you basically say that data is everything here, the IP rights to the games, that the game creator can shut down whatever and whoever they want. Is this also a topic in regards of the data from directly the player's side, in regards of the data on specific users, demographics, how they play, what games they play, how they interact, all this data outside of the actual game data?
No, you could, listen, you could definitely operate in the space. You could just come and offer odds for games and put all the stats like you're saying, but the problem is, how are you going to get your name out there? You probably want some sort of marketing push, which probably means direct sponsorship of influencers, teams, tournaments themselves, and that's where the game dev can literally cut all of that out. They don't even have to do it explicitly. They could just go to those people and say, do not be involved with these people. It's happened in Dota 2 already. We had this whole thing where certain teams and tournament organizers aren't allowed to be sponsored basically by betting companies.
Yeah. James, can you elaborate a little bit there as well?
Yeah, you make it sound, yeah, you paint a picture, but and that has happened, and there was an instance with Valve that they didn't want teams who play Dota, which is if there's football or there's basketball, that's one of them, right? Dota is one of the games, so there's various games that Valve are like, hey, we're not that interested in you having sponsorships from betting teams. But then the Russian community that were heavily reliant on the income from the sponsorships went back to Valve and said, but then you would have to give us this money. And Valve were like, well, that's not a good business move for us. You guys can still have the betting sponsors. But like, just to kind of explain the actors within esports, to try and make it as simple as possible. The game developer owns the game, so they own football, right? And then what's under that is the events. The events are basically tournaments. They're happening all the time. Esports, there's so much that you could bet on because there's so many tournaments and so many different games. But these have to happen, right? Now, the players join those because there's prize money, and then everyone else can come in from the side and throw in sponsorship dollars. So it could be from betting companies, it can be from, Monster Energy, etc., like this. But like what I would say is that the esports itself is now turned into marketing. It's marketing to make the game developer money. So if you're coming in and going, well, I want to be involved in this and I'm going to throw in some sponsorship dollars, you're going in saying, okay, well, we know that the game developer is making money because when they're watching these tournaments, people are playing and engaging in the game and the game developer makes more money. How are you going to make more money? How are you going to position yourself? And I think the key is, as you mentioned, your strategy to get in terms of how you sponsor and engage with the community. Are you supporting the tournament? So you're putting in prize money to the tournament so the community feel like, well, I'm watching something amazing this weekend and it's all thankful for one of your companies have helped support. They're more likely to, kind of come to you. Or you could just put your logo on something, a team shirt, and then you're another NASCAR sticker. They're probably not going to engage with you, as much. So you really want to aim, I think, going for the game developer, then the event organizer, then the teams, and then the players. And you also need data. And the thing I think about esports, which is fantastic, is we probably have better data with the game developers available than any other sport. We can tell you the average movement speed of a player, where they stand, on a map, what percentage of what they do equates to a win. So what you really want, I think, as a position is try and get the best data you can, try and get deeply integrated with sponsorship as high as you can, which is the game developer. And if you can't, you can get it further down, but you're going to be spending in more different areas. You might have to sponsor 5 teams or, be in lots of different games. But if you go straight to the game developer, you're kind of friends with God in this world, and they can just give you the thumbs up. Here's all the data. Now you can make the best odds possible, and we're going to integrate you with our biggest events around the world. Everyone's going to see your name, and hopefully they're going to come over, and they make money and you make money. So hopefully that explains the actors. I would say there's 4 of them: the game developer, the event organizer, the teams, and then the players, and then all the sponsorships on the side that comes in. And they all need to exist.
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry if I ran.
I think also to sort of just continue on the trajectory of, because you mentioned a lot of different acquisition channels, basically, on the hierarchy where you as a company should enter. I don't mind whoever can elaborate on this, but yes, because when we're talking about the game creators, you have the actual teams, the individual players. For a company that wants to enter the esports space, there are different types of acquisition channels to get your revenue flow and get your customer acquisition, basically.
Yeah,
and I think you covered it very well. But do you think it's a more is it a very different acquisition route than it is in traditional sports?
I'm not actually that sure about that in traditional sports, but what I will say is like the strategies, most of them can work. If you get the game developer, you've got the golden ticket. But if you don't, you can still support many teams and influencers. These tournaments, the reason why it's so good in marketing is they take players and they turn them into celebrities. And so, Duncan, who we met in like early 2000, I don't know how many Twitter followers you've got now. It's something, quite a few. How good with the number? 220,000. Yeah, 220,000 because of esports, right? Because he's an esports journalist and he's an esports celebrity. So 220,000 followers isn't, something to, knock at, right? So if you can't get the game developer, there are plenty of now kind of gaming celebrities and other revenues. So you can kind of, change the direction if you can't, because some of the game developers like Epic or Valve might not be that interested in having a direct sponsorship with a betting company, but they can't necessarily stop you from talking to Duncan.
No, exactly. And Luca, I think since we're then talking about sponsorships and teams, I think maybe you can be a good person to like, how important is sponsorships for a team, and could a team be successful without sponsorship, specifically from the iGaming betting industry, and is other areas of the business like Coca-Cola or Snickers or other bigger entities, Red Bull, that have enter the esports space. Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing, and specifically from a team perspective?
It's definitely a great thing that big brands are joining the esports industry. Obviously, it's an industry that lives on sponsorship deal, most likely. At least the esports organization definitely We are in the need of sponsorship. They are increasing. A lot of new companies, big brands are approaching us and the industry itself. So to answer your question, yes, sponsorship are super important. I have the feeling that what we are still missing to be able to bring big sponsor on board are, well, couple of elements. First of all, I think that to be effective in terms of an engagement with the community, and so to provide a proper ROI to a potential sponsor, I think that what is missing here is the experience. I do believe that delivering the right experience to the community, to the players, can definitely deliver value, because kids today want to be involved in something. How? Experiencing the esport life. Whatever that means, because for somebody it means to watch a stream, for somebody else is to learn something from the professional players, for some of them is to spend one day in a gaming house, for some of them is something else. But for me, experience is the key word for engagement. In regards of betting company, I have the feeling that something is happening. There are some money flowing into the industry, for sure, in the sport industry. I think that we are still behind, especially compared to what we were expecting maybe a few months ago, a few years ago. And I do believe that's connect what he was trying to explain with the value chain. The fact that nobody control, other than the publisher, nobody control the final part of the value chain, which is the product. Obviously, that create big problems. The fact that there's no one single central regulator obviously brings complexity, fragmentation, insecurity, and that doesn't help for communication and for traditional company to start investing massively in the esport industry.
So would you then say that it is a valuable decision to sponsor esport at this moment, or is it too early? Is it too late? Is it too expensive? Do you have any thoughts on this?
It's all about how much they're going to spend. I think that there is the right amount here to be spent, as long as the sponsorship goes along in the right way with activation initiatives. Because to put a brand on a jersey, I never believed in that in general, but especially in this industry, kids really don't care much if you have whatever brand that you have in the jersey. It helps for brand awareness, but it doesn't convert in acquisition. You team, us in this sense, in this case, we have to create the opportunity, the initiatives, the experience where we activate or where we convert or where we bring back to life some potential bettors around esports. So if I'm answering you the question, yes, I think it's a good moment to invest, not too much, but I would really suggest for company to invest in organization that kind of tell them also how to invest those money. So we need a little bit of effort to educate the sponsor.
But okay, Thoorin, since you, as an influencer, you've probably been also in the middle of different types of sponsorships and seen, as the young generation call it, sellout, for example, when you promote a brand, and sponsorships are, as mentioned, important. Is there any sort of mistakes a company can do when sponsoring in esports? What should you do and what shouldn't you do, in your opinion?
For me, the biggest mistake is thinking that it's just like putting your ad on a billboard on the side of a bus and it's the same ad every time. And if we just hit them with it enough, it's going to sink in. Like the way I've always done my sponsorships personally is I just took the key talking points and I would create a skit around it, some sort of a joke or something unrelated even to the product, but that would just mention the name of the product or basically associate having fun, the idea that this is like a cool sponsor that lets you do these things. They must understand the space or who these people are. Like a lot of that stuff basically was just generated as a concept from me. It wasn't from the company, but I found that had easily the best response because then people just associated your brand, whatever they liked about that, with the brand that you was being sponsored by. So I think initially that's a pretty good way in. You don't have to necessarily sell them on the concept of your odds are the best or you have some sort of extra data someone else doesn't have. Like that angle probably not going to work as well as people might do when they think of like selling a car or something like that. So I would say it's more about like the lifestyle element and you want to associate it with other cool things. And if you just, like, let's face it, that's just young people, right? That's how naturally they tend to consume things in culture anyway, I think.
Okay. James, do you have anything to elaborate in regards of this sort of?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think the original question is it like too late, too early, or is it a good time to go into sponsorships, right?
Yes.
And yeah, I think it is, but I would really suggest finding out who the players in this field are, who are the teams, even like trying to find out. And you have great people in betting and casinos. I mean, esports it was born out of passion. You didn't go into it to make a lot of money. So in some ways, we're only just really getting more and more expertise in. You guys have a lot of expertise. So in research, you could probably find out what the players' contracts look like, so you can understand more about the team's financing. So when it comes to your decision, like, do you want to sponsor? You understand like how, like, if you're sponsoring one team, how big is esports really? How many teams are there in this game? How many teams are there in another game? And also so I think there's plenty of room for research, and you're going to find out some amazing stuff. And in terms of like the engagement, as Luca mentioned, that pretty much is key. If you're going to stick a logo somewhere, you're not really offering anything to the user. And a lot of these users, they're sat at home, they're watching the game on Twitch TV. And if you're a betting company and you can just offer something in terms of like, you've supported this event, so this weekend full of entertainment is partly because of you, they're going to like you a lot. And if you can bring something up on screen that isn't just like, hey, this is us, but if you could bring up like, this is what our betting site thinks who's going to win. It doesn't need to be odds, but you can be like, we think there's a 75% chance because you've got all the data, you're running this great, and someone at home is like, oh, you've just added to my storyline. You've like, I'm watching this game and I'm engaged, and you just told me that my favorite team is likely to lose. Oh no, And so you've kind of engaged them a little bit just by using what you are fantastic at, which is data, and you haven't just done a, straight sponsorship. You've offered additional kind of entertainment to their weekend. And hopefully because of that, they're more likely to be like, oh, who are these people giving us these great odds on who's going to win and lose this game? And it's changing as the game goes on my screen. Let's go check out their website. Oh, I can place a bet. Okay, $5, why not?
Okay.
That's the dream.
Yes, Thoorin.
Actually, just to comment on that topic, since they both did, I would just say the way he described it before, like, oh, do you want to get involved now? The end of the value chain sort of locked off at the moment. No. Like, here's the thing. Yeah, if you're Coca-Cola, you probably want to just deal with the Olympic Committee and get a sponsorship like that. Right? You don't want to deal with 50 people. When he said that, it's complex, it's fragmented, great. If you're someone out there who's got some hustle, you've got a little bit of nous about you, you've got some sponsorship yourself, you understand risk reward, sounds like the ideal market. There's a million opportunities to get in.
And also going back to that point, as we have established, the game developer makes all the money. And you're like, well, do teams want sponsorships? You can literally put a logo on any team. No team is going to say no to you at this point, unless they're connected directly with one of the game developers' franchises, which is like the Blizzard Overwatch League, right? You've probably heard of that. Blizzard started a league, billionaires came in, they bought these franchise spots. You're probably not going to be able to sponsor that. But there are so many other esport games, all with their communities, and you can spend a little bit in each, see how it goes, and there are teams, players, event organizers that do need your money, because at the end of the day, that's how they survive. The game developer doesn't need your money. But if they want to take it, that's great, but get their data. And if you don't get their data, get something.
Okay.
Just one suggestion for whoever company want to join the esport wave. You should really have the courage to forget what you have learned so far about marketing and sales. This is a completely different beast. You should find the courage to hire someone that is extremely young, because only a very young manager can really appreciate and understand how his friends or kind of people with the same age can
His
really
generation
can engage with each other. So it's not copy and paste. This is really a different beast. If you find the secret sauce, the formula to get into it, can be a massive opportunity.
Yeah, since we are getting closer to the end of this panel discussion, I think we can round off with as one question. So that is quite big, but just a quick answer from all of you. How can companies maximize their revenue at the current date in the esports scene? So be it as a sponsor or as a betting operator, it doesn't really matter, but different companies, what is your best way of maximizing your profit and revenue in the esports scene if you're in it to make money and not out of passion, which esports originally? For example.
Well, for me, the key is really you have to understand your customer. You have to create the right persona to profile them and to really understand what they're really looking for. What is very important to understand is that the industry is very fragmented, which means there are a lot of products. Different product, different games. Different games means a completely different audience. Different audience means a different way to communicate and different spending power. So if you want to be effective in that sense, please analyze first your ideal customers and then look into the different segmentations, which is the most compatible for you.
I would say you've probably got to get the right initial spend, like who are you going to sponsor initially? Because when I think of most of the betting companies, I can already associate them with a specific tournament, like James says that I saw them in where their odds flashed up. And so in your brain, it already thinks, well, if I was going to place a bet, we'd probably be here, right? And would it be this odd? You know, you're already thinking of that before you've finished calculating, is it the right odds for the match? So I think just exposure is probably the first thing you need before you're going to get any maximized value.
Yeah, I'll just say that as well. It's really exposure and data. Just trying to figure out what data you can get, who you can get it from. So doing enough research on that. Event organizers can give you data because they run the servers for the tournament, so they can scrape the data. The game developer owns all the data. So you can get it one way or another. Sometimes game developers just put up an API and you can get a lot of information anyway that can help you out. And then in terms of the exposure is... it's exposure, and as Luca mentioned, it's a different beast. It's how you engage with your audience. Like, what's your brand's personality when you go out there? I mean, do you have a bit of an esports personality and angle to you, or are you just saying, hey, we're a betting company, we're here? Or you're like, oh, we're a betting company, but hey, we kind of get you, and so we've done this kind of stuff, and we've done some, videos with Thoorin, and we've done his top breakdowns for the next tournament, who he thinks is going to win, and it's sponsored by us, and and people will be like, because it's fragmented, if they find that if they appreciate that you're finding the good, people within our esports scene, they're going to think you're a good company as well. So hopefully that goes towards your image. Maybe that makes somewhat sense, but it's tough, but it's a lot of fun to get into. I think it's a really exciting time for betting companies to really put some research into this, because I firmly believe that we're at a point in esports where we're getting really professional in terms of contracts. So it feels like betting can start coming in, and I believe over the next 5 years, esports and esports betting is going to be a pretty obvious conversation you're going to have with your mates. It's like, oh, there's a game on. Who you bet on? Right now it's like, where do you bet? Should I bet? Is this a good betting site? What are the odds here? Why, And I think over the course of 5 to 10 years, I think it will kind of go hand in hand a little bit.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think we should just open for some questions from the audience. So whoever has a question they want to ask, you can ask it to whoever here. I think we should maybe put on the headsets if there are some questions. If anyone has questions, there's a mic being delivered. If you have any questions in regards of anything, feel free to shoot. Good. There are some questions. That's a good thing.
Hi. Do you see the number of event organizers increasing or decreasing? Will there be some kind of some major event organizers that's going to take the majority of the market in the future?
Event organizers were the biggest part of esports outside of obviously the players at the beginning. But then what happened is the game developer realized what the event organizers were doing was making them a lot of money. So they started coming in and basically saying, oh, you used to run these events? No. Now we run these events. So some of the games that you can now, obviously bet on are really run by the game developer. This is Epic Games run Fortnite, Valve run the Dota 2 International Series, which is one of the biggest in prize pool. But they still license it out to various event organizers. I just believe that because it's such good marketing for the game developers, we might not see a lot of event organizers cropping up, but what we have is probably going to stay strong. So that's your ESL, your PGL, your DreamHack, etc. Even MLG, which is the biggest American event organizer, was bought up by Blizzard, and they were integrated into running Blizzard's now league, the Overwatch League. outside of that, if you go, that's like top tier, right? They're the big names, you know, multi-million-dollar companies. There are a lot of people that love doing, you know, pro-am events and stuff that do want to break into the scene. So you do have a lot of event organizers, you know, at a lower end. The problem is that maybe with betting is those players are not earning a lot of money. So they probably have dubious contracts. It might be scary to put out some bets on there because you don't know what could happen, you know, with players seeing what they could win. They could win more money, you know, fixing your website than they can off prize money. But that's why also on the top end, I think it's great for betting now because the amount of money, you know, that's being earned just from playing the game and the game developer makes betting pretty safe in my opinion.
Excellent.
So I don't think it's going to go up or down really. I think it's going to stabilize. Is the answer to your question?
Yeah, just to add on this, I have the feeling that there are a lot of new market niche that are growing, that are coming, like community events, like Pro-Am. So this is going to increase obviously the number of organizers in that sense.
Okay,
No more time.
so we're out of time. So maybe
we can also take maybe some question aside.
Yeah, so we
panel.
skipped the last question in public, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to come over to any of us and ask freely after the
Thank you.
conclusion. Perfect. Thank you so much for showing up, everyone. Excellent. Thank you.